The first scream came from the woods behind Hollow Creek, a place everyone in town avoided after dark. They said the house there, the old Marin estate, was cursed. Windows glowed when no one lived there, and shadows walked across the lawn even when the moon was gone. No one had entered the house since 1986, when the Marin family disappeared overnight. All except for a boy named Daniel, who was found days later staring at the creek, whispering the same words over and over. "She's still in the walls." 30 years later, documentary filmmaker Clara Hensley decided to make her next project about that legend. The House on Hollow Creek, she called it, smiling confidently in front of the cameras. Her team warned her not to go alone. She didn't listen. "It's just an abandoned house," she said. "Ghosts don't exist." She arrived at dusk. The road was cracked, overgrown, and the forest seemed to lean toward her car like it wanted to swallow her whole. When she reached the house, it looked alive. Timbers groaning, shutters swaying even though there was no wind. As she stepped out, the smell hit her. Damp earth, mold, and something else. Something metallic. Blood. Inside, the house was too cold. Her flashlight beam quivered across portraits on the wall, faces of the Marin family, smiling stiffly, eyes too bright. Every picture had been scratched, except for one. A woman in a black dress holding a baby. Beneath it, carved into the frame, were the words, "Mother watches." Clara started recording, narrating as she moved through the hall. "This house hasn't been touched for decades," she whispered. "But look, fresh footprints." They weren't hers. They led deeper inside. The sound recorder on her chest crackled suddenly, catching faint breathing, though the room was silent. She turned the flashlight toward the staircase. At the top stood a child, pale, hair hanging over its face. "Hello?" she called. The child tilted its head, then turned and walked into the darkness. Clara followed. Each step creaked like bones snapping. When she reached the second floor, every door was open, except one at the end of the hall. A soft lullaby floated from behind it. She pushed the door, and it swung open slowly. Inside was a nursery. The crib rocked by itself. The mobile above it spun, even though the air was still. "This is insane," she whispered, recording everything. Then the rocking stopped. The lullaby changed. It wasn't a song anymore. It was whispering her name. The door slammed shut behind her. Her flashlight flickered, revealing words scrawled across the wallpaper. "Mother is hungry." A shape rose slowly from the crib. A woman, skin gray and stretched tight, hair black as tar. Her eyes were nothing but black holes, and her mouth opened too wide to be human. "You shouldn't have come," the thing whispered. "You woke her." Clara screamed, stumbling back as the woman crawled toward her on all fours, moving like broken bones twisting in silence. The camera fell, but it kept recording. Clara's breathing filled the mic, fast, terrified. Then came the sound of flesh tearing, a choking gasp, and silence. 3 weeks later, police found her car still parked near Hollow Creek. Inside was her laptop, and on it, the last video file titled "Mother Watches." The footage showed her entering the house, talking calmly. But the strange thing was, the reflection in every mirror didn't match her movements. It smiled when she didn't. The final seconds of the video showed the camera lying on the floor, the view facing the door. From the darkness, 2 pale feet appeared, followed by a soft voice, gentle and motherly. "Don't cry, child. Mother is here." Then a hand reached for the camera, and the screen went black. Locals say that if you drive near Hollow Creek after midnight, you can still see the house glowing faintly through the trees. Sometimes you'll hear a lullaby carried by the wind. And if you stop to listen too long, you'll feel something cold and wet brush your cheek, like a mother's hand. And that's when you'll hear her whisper, right next to your ear. When Detective Ethan Cross first read Clara Hensley's missing person report, he thought it was just another reckless filmmaker who'd gone too far. But when they found her footage, the one labeled Mother Watches, something inside him twisted. He couldn't explain it, but he kept hearing a lullaby in his head, even after the TV was off. The next morning, Ethan and forensic expert Dr. Lila Monroe drove out to Hollow Creek. The forest was silent, almost heavy, as if holding its breath. The air grew colder as they approached the Marin house, which looked different from the pictures. The windows weren't broken anymore. The front door was slightly open. "That's impossible," Lila whispered. "This place was abandoned for decades." They entered cautiously. Dust should have covered everything, but the floors were clean, almost polished. A faint smell of perfume drifted through the air, mixed with something sour. "Smells like iron," Ethan said quietly. "Blood," Lila replied. They followed a faint trail of red droplets leading toward the nursery. Every step echoed like footsteps behind them, though they both knew no one else was there. In the nursery, the crib was gone. In its place stood a rocking chair, gently swaying though the air was still. On the wall, the words, "Mother is hungry," were now smeared over with something darker, thicker. And underneath, scratched freshly into the plaster, were 4 new words. She found another one. Lila froze. "Ethan, what if Clara isn't dead?" Before he could answer, the radio on his belt crackled. A voice whispered through it, static mixed with a soft woman's hum. "Detective." The voice was low, wet, almost affectionate. "Leave her alone. She's mine now." Ethan tore the radio off and threw it, but it kept humming on the floor. They backed out into the hall. The portraits that once hung on the walls were gone. Only empty hooks remained. Then, faintly, the sound of children laughing echoed upstairs. It wasn't playful, it was mocking. Ethan drew his gun, his breath fogging in the air. "This house is playing with us," he muttered. "No," Lila said softly. "It's remembering us." They reached the staircase. On the top step sat a small doll, porcelain face cracked, one eye missing. A tag around its neck read, "For Mother." Ethan stepped closer, and suddenly the house groaned. Every door upstairs slammed at once. The chandelier shook violently, glass raining down like ice. The walls began to weep, dark streaks seeping through the wallpaper like blood. Lila screamed as something cold wrapped around her ankle and yanked her off her feet. She hit the floor hard, dragged backward by invisible hands. Ethan grabbed her arms, pulling desperately, but whatever had her was stronger. From the shadows, a tall figure began to emerge, the woman from Clara's video. Her eyes were hollow voids, her mouth a black cavern stretching far beyond her jawline. "Give her back," Ethan shouted, firing his gun. Each bullet disappeared mid-air, vanishing into the dark like stones thrown into water. The woman smiled, a horrible, stretching grin. "Mother doesn't like noise," she hissed. With the flick of her wrist, the gun melted in his hand, searing his skin. He fell back, clutching his palm. The woman leaned close to Lila's face, whispering in a soft, loving tone. "You've come to take her child, but you don't understand. She is the child now." The house groaned again, walls pulsing like veins, floorboards breathing. The woman faded, pulling Lila into the darkness until only her scream remained. Ethan ran toward the exit, but the door was gone. The hallway stretched endlessly, every window showing a different version of the same room, each one with him inside, looking older, weaker, dying. He finally stopped, panting, when he saw Clara. She stood at the far end, her face pale and eyes blank. "Clara?" he whispered. She smiled faintly. "Mother forgave me." Now she wants you too. The walls behind her split open, a gaping black mouth forming where the nursery had been. From it came a sound, a heartbeat, slow and wet. Clara turned her head unnaturally far, bones cracking as she whispered, "She's awake." The camera on Ethan's chest recorded until the very end. The last thing it captured was his flashlight flickering on the wall, illuminating new words written in thick, dripping red. The family grows. When the police found the footage 2 days later, Hollow Creek was gone. The entire forest had burned in an unexplained fire. But on the edge of the ashes stood a new house, smaller, freshly built, lights glowing softly inside. And through the window, if you looked long enough, you could see a woman in a black dress cradling a baby that wasn't breathing. She smiled, turned to the camera that wasn't there, and whispered,